And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Did you ever play that game as a child where you took a piece of paper and you drew a grid on it, and then one at a time you took turns and you drew a line between two dots on the grid? And eventually, if you made a box, you could then put your initials in that box, and at the end of the game, whoever had the most boxes with their initials won the game. Well, that's really what this game here reminds me of, Kuado. It's a game, an abstract strategy game for two people, and as you can see, the packaging itself isn't really that impressive, but maybe that's the kind of look they were going for, a no-frills, sterile type look, but that's what you get. So it doesn't look very impressive, but at least what's inside the box is a little better. Here we see what's inside the box, and pieces for two players. Each player gets 10 of these sticks, yellow and green. They're pretty thick, pretty big, and then they get 9 of these circular discs, which are basically act as bases. On a player's turn, and turn alternates between the two players, they must put out 1, 2, or 3 of their pieces, and it's done like this. The first piece is a base. After that, you're putting out bases in a grid type format like this, but you can also place a stick lying on top of 2 bases like thus. Another player can put theirs, and the bases are neutral. It's the sticks that really matter. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get to the point where you form a square of your own color. If you do that, you win the game. Now, eventually you're going to get to a point where all the bases and all the sticks are going to be on the board, especially when you're playing with 2 players. At the beginning, you're going to find a lot of mistakes. Reason being is like this. Let's say this is the way the game is set up, and it is green's turn. If you ever have 2 sticks in an L shape like this, that's an automatic victory, because with 3 pieces, 1, 2, 3, there's the square. So basically the game, players are thriving on another player's mistake to make the square. But let's say players are aware of that and are watching that. Eventually all the pieces are going to be on the board in some manner or fashion, in some kind of grid. At that point, you can then move your pieces, 1, 2, or 3 pieces on your turn. You can move them to another location. You can also move one of these discs on top of any group of 4 sticks together that all converge on one post. When you do that, you basically lock them into place. For 1 turn, no one can move this. After that, either player can move it, and then you can move the sticks underneath it. The game can end if one player has no moves that they can make, but mostly it's going to end in one player completing a square of their color. That's basically the game. It's very, very simple, and in fact, that's probably what's going to hurt it the most. I played it with several people, and I'm the only person who even remotely likes it. I find it interesting. It's not a bad idea, putting the sticks back and forth, trying to make a square, but it just, at the same time, there's only so many moves you can make. You're trying to get it into a situation where you can put down 1, 2, 3, and there you go. You've just won. And so you're watching your opponent for any mistake. He's watching you, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of neat moves you can make. There's none of this set 3 moves up in the future type thing. In fact, there's almost no pre-planning at all other than the next move. Each player has the exact same pieces, using the same bases. You can only make squares. The whole thing is a very, very simple game. It might work well maybe for younger children, although I would, and again, in their situation, only when they're playing each other. But it doesn't seem to have any kind of real depth. And when you're playing an abstract strategy game like this, even if the pieces are nice, wooden sticks and such, and it looks okay when setting up, it just doesn't. It needs to be able to grab me for me to continue to want to play it. But there's also a few component issues. As the game is being put down, these discs, you're putting the pieces on top of them. Well, eventually you're going to get to the point where you're trying to put a stick on top and it doesn't fit on, and when you do it, it pushes it off other sticks. It would have been nice if there had been some kind of maybe paper layout or board in which you could see exactly where to put them. This sounds like maybe a quibbling thing, but every time I played the game, we got to points where you're putting them down and then you're trying to fit these in, and it's not a perfect square, and then you're moving the pieces, and it just becomes more fiddly than it should be. Everything fits easily inside the box. The game itself is okay. That's really the only problem I have. But again, what here is grabbing me? What here is saying, play me again. And there really isn't anything. I don't think that it's a bad game. If you wanted to play me, I'd say sure, we'd try it. But I don't know how often I would want to try it out, just because I've seen it. You play it once, and there's just really not that big of a desire to play it again.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.